Art195 A class, welcome to remote instruction for May 13th class. Two of the three group presentations have been posted in the May 13th announcement. In other words, today's announcement. Yeah, it looks like I have group 2 and 3. So group 1, if you could send me your YouTube link, then we'll have the full trio in there. And if anyone wants to look at those to help them out for the rest of the semester, that will be very convenient. And inside of Canvas, under discussions, the post has been created to turn in today's work, the work that's due today, May 13th, which consisted of the two JPEGs and then the Chapter 10 work, which I believe Chapter 10 was another InDesign, so it'd be the InDesign in the PDF file. Make sure you watch last week's video, which will be found in the May 6th announcement, if any of that doesn't make sense to you. Also well, hold on one sec. Yeah, I can go ahead and say that. So for this week, you're doing very similar to what you will be doing next week. So in other words, due today on the 13th is the mask for your entire person void of the background. And I show you how in the May 6th announcement how to make a blue and a red background for that. Now, what is due on the 20th will be very similar, but it will just be your skin. So no hair, only like 50% of your lips, and that'll make sense if you're watching the videos that you're supposed to be watching, and I'll just give you a quick reminder where those are. And then I also showed, which will be more applicable to like the 27th of May and the very last day, how to really manually finesse those masks and even paint hair to make your work look as professional as possible. Okay, so on the Prof. Steve G site, under Set 2, under Art195, you were assigned these videos a long time ago, the very bottom ones here. But if you're having any difficulty with just basic masking, I think you're all experts now after seeing the work you put together for the presentations last week. But also I go over here and show you, basically how not to add texture. You can see that totally flattens her. And then with dodging, burning, changing the opacity, you can get all of the little roundedness, like this muscle in her neck here, and the cheeks look rounded, and so on. Okay, so let's look at what is actually due for May 20th. And we will not have a Zoom today, May 13th, or on May 20th. But of course, if you have questions, let me know. And if there's something that's too difficult to explain by email, I could always have you join in on a Zoom for another class and take care of that as well. But we will definitely be having a Zoom on May 27th as we do a big screen process check of the entire magazine cover. And then on June 3rd, which is our final day, and when your final presentation of the final project will be due. All of that, of course, will be explained week by week. All right, so due by 5 p.m. on May 20th is the process check of your final project. Now, before I actually list what's due, I just give you a reminder that this is indeed your final project and thus worth 20% of your grade in the class. So make sure that you read the grade sheet again and check it several times between now and the end of the semester. And as a reminder, it's here under Files, and then you just click those little buttons next to it to download it. But if you have any questions on that, let me know. Right, so that's how you download it right there, by clicking the three dots. And because it's 20% of your grade, it can make a difference between keeping the grade you're at and moving you down to one lower. And if you're close enough to one higher, it could be enough to bump you up. So very important. And if you want to try to do a manual calculation of your grades, I talk about that in the first day videos, how to do that. And there's definitely more than enough data in the grades now for you to make a pretty good educated guess of what a high or a low grade would do for this project. Okay, and very important on that grade sheet is the mention of using the correct fonts, which I also featured in one of the videos. And just a reminder, it's from the Great 28 typographic specimens. You just find the fonts on your computer that are also listed in that book. And you only really need 1 or 2 fonts to make a project look good. Doing more than that typically makes a project look very amateurish when there's just all kinds of fonts in it. Okay, and then the other thing to get the good grade is just be willing to redo your mask to make the project look 100% professional. You have a lot of time dedicated as far as a full semester class goes to this project. So the expectation is that it will look very professional and something that you would want people to see. So the actual process check due on the 20th will be you showing me how good your mask is that masks just your skin. That will be the mask that you use to apply texture. So you'll be sending me 2 JPEGs to accomplish this, or when I say sending, I actually mean putting on the post. I'll make a post for May 20th. And you'll put a solid blue color as a background so that I can see just your skin against blue. And if you need a refresher of what I'm talking about there, look at last week, May 6th video, and then also the 2 videos that are linked in for our class that I just showed you earlier in this one. Also show me at least 1 texture, but if you have multiple textures and it's looking good, you can leave them all on. And on that one, put it against a red background. So you'll be sending me 2 JPEGs. Okay, and then just a reminder, now that your image is taking shape, now that you've got a good mask, now that you're adding texture to it, be sure and look at it in Illustrator. So that was the whole reason why we placed a Photoshop document inside Illustrator, so that each time you work on the Photoshop document, you can go into Illustrator and see it updated. And you can see whether the text that you chose still looks good against your image, whether the text colors that you chose still looks good against your image, and whether the teaser title article you chose is appropriate. Like maybe you put how we see ourselves, and now you're looking more like an alien, so maybe you want to change it to, are they already among us? And hierarchy, which is the visual stacking of information, is super important on this project because it is a magazine cover. So if you look at past examples, I put ones in here that I thought had good hierarchy to them. So if you go to student work, you go to Intro to Digital Media, and you go magazine cover, and look at some of these examples. Not to copy any of them, but just to get inspiration. Here's one that only white was used for the text color, and you can see science, big, hierarchy, number 1. And then number 2 is this, which is appropriate because it has to do with this image. And then we have 3rd place, and then these are probably tied for 4th place. Another good example, and you can see, you'll see multiple examples where people had a really hard time if science and quarterly were the same size. So they blew up science and then made quarterly smaller. Here's another example of that. Here you have your clear, after the image, because image would be number 1, but then science quarterly, number 2. Will humans look like this in the future? Number 3. The part that goes along with this, number 4. And then these all tie for 5, and maybe summer 21 is in that same tie for 5. But it's a nice, clear step. 1, 2, maybe all of these are in 3rd place. This is one of the few where science quarterly works good big, but she has a lot of space up at the top here to make that work. But as far as text goes, there's your 1, your 2, and then 3, and then maybe these 2 and summer. Another one where science is big, making the number 1 for text, number 2, number 3, and then some ties in here, 4 and 5-ishes. Another one where Science Quarterly works big, but you can see a lot of top space. Another thing to keep in mind is make sure your image stays big. Like this is about the smallest you would want your face on the cover. Another one where Science Quarterly worked, but another way achieving hierarchy is not just size, it's color. So that's why this one works. This one works pretty good, and maybe it's because it's underlined, but you could argue that these two are maybe competing a little bit too much for a clear number one. Science Big Quarterly a little bit smaller, so you're 1, you're 2, and see how she used it, just kind of an odd background to get this to clearly jump in the number 2 spot, and then probably 3, and yeah, probably those two tie for 4. So anyway, look through these for inspiration, and we'll go from there.